Sydney Pollack is here. His directing career has been marked by his work in different genres, from thrillers like 3 Days of the Condor and The Firm to romantic dramas like The Way We Were and Out of Africa. Here is a look at some of his work.
What is so hot about being here? JJ's going to buy you a book and we're all going to go to Hollywood?
Take it easy, Katie. Katie, lots of good writers went there. Fitzgerald.
He's dead, you dummy!
I know that.
It's none of your business anyway. He died of booze and canopies like this and people like you!
God damn it, stop it! A guy told a bad joke. He's sorry.
Why did you bring me here?
You don't write the truth. I mean, you write what people say. But you overhear, you eavesdrop, and you don't come across truth that easy. I mean, maybe it's just what you think, what you feel. I don't need your goddamn newspaper to decide what they're gonna do with me, or who I am.
Then you tell me. Who are you?
You see what can happen. You know this pretty girl?
She made her own clothes. She could sew very well, and she made her own clothes.
I wouldn't run. If you do, she'll think you're something good to eat.
How do you... Do you have a gun?
She won't like the smell of you.
Oh, my God, shoot her!
$15.5, 34. I dig 15.5, 34s. What size are you?
What are you, a clown?
I'm scared.
So am I.
What are you scared for? You've got the gun.
Yes. Yeah, and it's not enough.
Before you dropped by to tell me my husband was screwing your wife, did it occur to you that that might be a hurtful thing to do?
You knew already.
I suppose I didn't.
How did you know, Mrs. Chandler?
He told me he was going to New York.
He's on the wrong plane, so it must be another woman, just like that.
Well, it could have been amnesia.
You think you're pretty smart, don't you? Well, we've been informed there's somebody smarter. You didn't get the highest score in the bar exam. You got the second highest score.
Nice. You played a tomato for 30 seconds. They went a half a day over schedule because you wouldn't sit down.
Yes, it wasn't logical.
You were a tomato! A tomato doesn't have logic. A tomato can't move.
That's what I said. So if he can't move, how's he gonna sit down, George? I was a stand-up tomato, a juicy, sexy beefsteak tomato. Nobody does vegetables like me. I did an evening of vegetables off Broadway. I did the best tomato, the best cucumber. I did an endive salad that knocked the critics on their ass.
Now, what'd you think of those clips?
I liked them. I actually, you know, it's funny. It's an occupational hazard trying to put clips together for yourself. Always pick the wrong ones.
So,
and never
so
get them right.
Joanne Napolitano should be putting your clips together because you think this is the best group of clips you've ever seen?
It's a very good group of clips, and they're the right length. It's not too long.
And the choice is probably perfect.
The choice is very good. I put them together, and I make them so long they bore people to death. You know,
I'll be her agent for maybe, you know, for a huge 7-figure income. You could probably get her on the staff.
I'd love them. That's a great set of clips. I'd like to take that home with me.
See, you need a clip person. You really do.
I do. I try to do it myself, and it's really
it does. You need a professional. You need a professional. That's what you need.
Exactly.
All right, what's this movie Changing Lanes about? If Scott Rudin's doing it, it's got to be interesting. That's the first thing I say.
Absolutely true.
Right.
It's absolutely true.
He's a guy who takes risks. He's a guy who has
all the time
insights.
All the time, and he's smart.
Okay.
He's one of the smartest producers I've ever worked with. And
really?
Absolutely.
The smartest producer you've ever worked with, or one of the?
I say one of the smartest producers I've ever worked with. Maybe the smartest.
Really?
I don't know. But
what does he have?
Well, first of all, he's untiring. He's untiring.
Yes,
he just works harder than anybody.
Yeah.
He has very, very good taste. He knows material very, very well. He knows actors. He started as a casting agent. Right. He just got a lot of qualities that make him a good producer. He never stops working, never gets discouraged on a project. If something isn't working right away, he'll reshoot, fix. He's persistent. He's great. I really enjoy. I've done 2 films with him and co-produced 2 other films with him. And I'm about to do another film with him, and I really enjoy working with him.
What's this movie about?
It's a hard movie to describe. I would tell you that it's a thriller, except nobody is in physical jeopardy. They're in emotional and moral jeopardy. So it's a very unusual movie. It's a smart script, again, a very smart script, about a moral dilemma and two guys trying to fight their way out of it. Samuel Jackson and Ben Affleck both give terrific performances. It's a movie that's getting very, very good reactions. I mean, I don't have a huge part in it.
What do you play?
I play the typical part I always play, the bad, evil guy or the jerk.
Roll tape. Here it is.
This is all a tightrope. You gotta learn to balance.
How can you live like that?
I can live with myself because at the end of the day, I think I do more good than harm.
But here's the question. Why do you act?
I only act because I'm curious about other directors. A director never gets to see
another. You're not doing it because you just want to see what other directors are like?
That's absolutely why I'm doing it. Why would I want to? Why do I care about acting at this stage?
Because you're at the point in your life you like enjoying it. It's fun. You can go out there and you can
enjoy working with people that I enjoy.
Exercise this muscle a little bit. You don't use much.
If Woody Allen asked me to do a movie, I'm very curious.
If Woody asked anybody to do a movie.
Yeah. And Kubrick, and Altman, and
so you choose carefully the directors that you will allow to.
I try to do it basically because I'm curious. You know, I'm not going to get offered a part where I'm going to look at the part and say, "God, this is the world's greatest part. I can't wait to do this," because I'm not an actor professionally. I don't do it for that reason. I do it because it's a particularly interesting piece of material, or the director fascinates me. I always learn something watching another director work. Actors get to see all kinds of
Who was
other
the director in Tootsie that fascinated you?
Who was the director in Tootsie? I didn't cast myself in Tootsie. Dustin did.
Dustin was calling you up saying, "This is Dorothy sending you messages saying you've got to do this."
Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
He sent me dozens of roses saying, "Please be my agent. Love, Dorothy." That's the truth. What happened was he said to me...
So Dusty made you do it?
Yes. Charlie, he said, "Where are the machine guns?" I said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "There were machine guns in Some Like It Hot. That's why those people put on the dress. We don't have any machine gun." I had cast Dabney Coleman as the agent. Yeah. I said, "The machine guns are the fact that your agent says to you, you're never going to work again." And Dustin said, "If Dabney Coleman tells me I'm never going to work again, I'm not going to put on the dress." And he said, "If you tell me I'm never going to work again, maybe I would put on the dress." Dabney is a peer.
And an actor you like.
Absolutely.
Roll tape. Here it is, Tootsie.
How are you?
Sorry, well, it's Michael.
Dorothy Michaels, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
May I say, Mr. Weintraub, that you are the best producer on the Broadway scene today.
Thank you. Thank you, Miss Michaels. Hope to see you again.
Yes, let's have lunch.
Fine.
I'll call you.
George?
Nice meeting you.
You know, he's very handsome. I think you ought to represent him.
You are psychotic.
No, I'm not. I'm employed.
So that started it. After that,
you know, it was like going back 20, you know, I couldn't get a job when I wanted to be an actor. That's the irony of this. The next thing that happened was about 2 years later, I got a letter from Woody Allen. And I was torn because I was dying to do it, but I read the part and I thought, I was so hurt that this is what Woody thought of me. I read this part and I said, geez, I'm playing a real jerk here.
Woody thinks that this is a natural for me.
Exactly. So that started it, and then after that was, I did a piece for Bob Zemeckis with Meryl. Mostly, again, it was both for Bob and because it was a scene with Meryl Streep, who I adore.
Listen, you got to stand in line.
Yeah, exactly.
For her.
You're not kidding. And I will stand in line for her. And then Altman and Kubrick and Roger on Changing Lanes, who's a lovely guy. And I met him what happened on that was I went to a party for the artists at the Pace Gallery, you know, that Arnie Glimcher gave. Right. And there was Roger, and we sat down, started to talk, and I found him just a charming, terrific guy. And so called me 2 days later and said, would I do this? And I said, sure.
And when was this?
Year and a half ago.
Oh, yeah. I was at the, I know, exactly.
Yeah, it was when,
right.
Now,
Talk to me about Kubrick.
Well, you know, we've
you
all
replaced Harvey Keitel, who,
Yeah.
for whatever reason, not worth going
Yeah.
into.
You know, I made a phone connection with Stanley Kubrick in 1970, and I spent the next almost 30 years not getting off the phone. You know, he's one of these guys that, you know, really is compulsive about communication. But I had never met him face to face. We became very good friends on the telephone and by fax.
You know, he would call you up and say, "What'd you think of this? Have you heard about
No,
this?"
he would
or-
call me up and say, "Who are the hot new writers?"
Right.
Or he would call me up and say, "Have you seen the Nescafe commercials?" I say, "What?" He said, "I'm going to send them to you. Count the words and look how much story gets told in this many words. Now, I'm going to you take a look at it." And I would look at it and I would fax it back and he would say, "Now I'm going to edit it even further. Watch how much story you can get in 10 seconds or in 15 seconds." These are those Nescafe commercials which were sort of like soap operas, you know, where the woman would go next door and suddenly see her husband or her daughter, son that she gave up for adoption or something.
In 30
like that.
seconds.
Anyway, he asked me to do this, and I did. You know, he was a real character. I mean, there was nobody like him. Everybody uses the euphemism perfectionist. Most of the time, they just mean pain in the ass. I mean, and they say, "Well, he's a perfectionist. Oh, she's a perfectionist." You know, a difficult person to work with. Stanley was the first real perfectionist I've ever met, who I would say he's got the title, hands down.
What one thing would earn him the title in your eyes?
Because I think he truly approached it like a chess player approaches a chess game, where his goal was to cover every possibility there was in every situation before he would say, "Okay, we're through with that scene." And that's why you heard of these astronomical numbers of takes. 40, 50, 60 takes. I mean, he just, let's try this, let's try that, let's try both, let's try neither. Let's try it a whole different way. Let's sit down and rewrite this now. Let's try a whole other thing. Because he was a chess hustler. He started out down in Washington Square hustling chess, and he was a Look magazine photographer, right?
Yeah,
so,
of course, right.
so here you got this guy with an eye that was like a race driver's feel of a car. He could walk in after lunch and say, "Who touched the lights?"
Yeah, but here's what I feel bad about. The thing that you can admire about Woody, and I do, is the body of work. Whether you like this movie or that movie, or you think the one he did 5 years ago is better than anything he's done since then, he's on the job creating movies.
Yes.
Not so with Kubrick.
Well, that's an argument that goes on with all of us over a whole lifetime. You make a decision inside yourself at some point, and sometimes people change and change what they've been doing. You either say, "I'm just going to work and work and work and work, and when I die,
sometimes there'll be a
somebody..."
coalescence of forces and it'll be brilliant.
That's right. And sometimes it won't, and sometimes it'll be somewhere in the middle. Or you can be super cautious, which a lot of people are. You know, I mean, I do it myself. I try not to. I try to work more. It's difficult. I keep wanting to choose, and I'm over choosing, and being too scared and too careful and too cautious. There's a lot to be said for just working. Working makes more work, and it's true that you're always learning when you're working. But you know, people can't fight their own personality. Stanley did everything from the sitting with for a year or 2 years on a script. He would meet every day with a writer and play with the words and mold the words. It's the only way he felt that he was accomplishing.
That's another example of perfectionism too.
That's exactly right. Then that's what he was. Other guys like Woody, you couldn't get two polar opposites. I mean, to go from Woody to Kubrick.
That's
was
why I
really
took that
amazing.
example.
Yeah. Well, you're right. You're right.
Eyes Wide Shut. Was that a good movie? I mean, come on.
I wouldn't know, to be honest with you, because I
wouldn't know or wouldn't say.
Well, I saw the movie once. I saw it at a premiere. I was so nervous while I was watching it. I was so disturbed by my own performance that I didn't even go to the party. It was the LA premiere. There was a big party afterwards. I got up and I went home. Now, maybe it was just the shock of seeing myself. I didn't know what to think of it at first. I hear people that hate the movie, and I hear people that love the movie.
I do too. Probably more the former than the latter.
I think that that's been the case with a lot of Stanley's movies. When Clockwork Orange came out, I never heard such arguments.
Exactly.
When The Shining came out, I never heard such...
And they're both now classics.
Full Metal Jacket came out, people were screaming and arguing in the streets. 10 years later, they're taught in film schools. There's never been a Stanley Kubrick movie that hasn't become, in some way, a classic.
Right.
Will that happen with Eyes Wide Shut? Let's wait 10 years. We'll see.
Billy Wilder.
Oh, now you're talking about The Boss.
The Boss.
That's The Boss. Well, because you said a very flattering thing about me working in different genres. He was the master of working in different genres. People think Billy Wilder is this comedic genius. Well, he is a comedic genius, but look at Sunset Boulevard. Look at Ace in the Hole. Look at the dramas that the guy did that were major, serious dramas. He was amazing. He was also the fastest, funniest, wittiest guy to spend time with. You know, he was an amazing guy. It's a big loss.
Anybody like him?
I don't think there is.
He really is a passing of him.
I don't think there is. I mean, who has that versatility and who has that body of work? Almost every one of those movies that we're talking about, is you talk about guys that make classic movies, classic comedies of all time, like Some Like It Hot. Well, it's considered the number one. I had the number two. It's a kind of a neat thing, but he's number one. And that was probably the movie that's more referred to than anything else when you talk about famous movie comedies is Some Like It Hot.
And
look
Tootsie
at
was second?
Yeah, Tootsie was second.
Right.
That was the 100 best. But think of Sunset Boulevard then. Just think of those two. Can you say, well, the guy that made Sunset Boulevard, he made that. The guy he made Ace in the Hole.
Here's what's true about you. You do a lot of things. I mean, you're out spending some time making a documentary about our friend Frank Gehry.
Right.
You are producing all over the place.
Yeah.
Didn't you have something at the Academy Award or not? I don't know whether you.
Yes, Iris. We
Iris,
won.
exactly.
We won,
you produced Iris
with Scott.
Broadbent.
With Scott.
And Scott
with
did
Rudin.
that too.
Yeah.
And
with Scott
Broadbent
Rudin.
won it for best.
Broadbent won. We had 3 nominations.
Yeah.
We had 6 BAFTA nominations. Little movie we made for $5 million.
Turned out to be just a terrific film.
Yeah, it's a good film.
Didn't you think so?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Richard Eyre did a beautiful job. Those actors were wonderful.
They were.
Yeah,
really.
I do. I like producing.
Okay, but so you're producing, you do occasional acting in a place where you want to work with the director or the script interests you or something.
Yeah.
You haven't directed since 1999.
Right.
What?
I'm getting ready now.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm going to try to start a picture this late summer, early fall.
I know a little bit about it, but tell me more about it.
Well, it's a picture again with Scott.
Right.
We're going to try to make a film out of Cavalier, The Adventures of Cavalier and Clay, the Pulitzer Prize book by Michael Chabon. It's a terrific story about America in the war years, through the 30s and 40s, and about 2 young immigrant kids who come over and start a comic book, believe it or not. And it's a kind of a triangle, a relationship picture between 2 guys who become real Americans and draw this hero. They get terribly influenced by Superman. And they try to make their own form of Superman, who is an escapist, really. And it's about escape and liberation and freedom.
So this is the first film that's come along that you really wanted to direct. Fair to say?
Pretty much so, yeah. I'm a reluctant director, to be honest with you. I mean, reluctant in the sense that I didn't grow up saying, you know what I want to do with my life? I want to be a film director. That isn't what happened. I kind of had an opportunity. I wasn't sure whether I should take it or not. I got a little bit pushed into it by Burt Lancaster, believe it or not, and John Frankenheimer early on when I was a kid. And I sort of did it, and then I learned it after I was doing it. I was doing television. I thought, okay, this is interesting. And I got more and more passionate about it as I did it. And like I said to you, the acting came along later, partially by accident. The producing I did because I got tired of feeling like a child, like I was waiting for a grown-up to come and bring me something to do. I wanted to to take care of the management of it as well as the creative end of it. So I started producing my own films first, and then I formed Mirage, the company, in '85. We've done now 25 or 26 films in the last 15 years, and some of them have been really interesting offbeat films that I've had a wonderful time producing because they're so different than the films I would have had a chance to direct. Sliding Doors, Sense and Sensibility, last year The Talented Mr. Ripley, Presumed Innocent, Fabulous Baker Boys, Iris. They're all over the place, and they're not the kind of films I would get offered as a director. They're sort of offbeat films. They're kind of interesting to me. The acting,
so you can involve yourself in a process of making a film that you care about being made but would not be exactly right for you to make.
Perfectly said. Exactly right. I get interested in something and say, I really don't want to direct this, but I'd like to see this movie.
And when you do that, when you play that role, what kinds of rules do you have to make? For example, if I'm directing a film hired by you, I don't want you looking over my shoulder.
You betcha. And that's exactly what I don't dare do, otherwise I'd have been finished the first time I tried it. If I'd ever done it to anybody, I wouldn't get anybody else to do it.
Yet at the same time, I want to take advantage of what you know.
Well, yeah, you understand this very well. You ought to be a producer, John. You've described it all. What I have to do is say, let me help you do what you want to do. I don't ever want to say, let me help you do what I think you should do. I'm sort of saying, look, there are a lot of times that I don't agree with the director I'm working with. I always take his side. I present the point of view that's maybe opposite and say, would you consider this, this, or this? And if the director ultimately says, yes, I considered it, I don't like that, I like this way, then I fight for that. That's what I have to do. Part of the reason a director like Ken Branagh or Ang Lee or somebody who's already known as a director but hasn't worked in Hollywood will come to a company like Mirage is because they're afraid to jump in with a studio first time, coming from outside a studio system, and they want a buffer. And so I've been in, I just finished doing that with two directors now. Tom Tykwer, the German director who did Run Lola Run. We had a movie that opened the Berlin Festival where there was a kind of an argument about certain details at the end of the picture. I didn't always agree with him. I think he's one of the most brilliant directors I've ever worked with. But I had no ambivalence about defending his choice. That's what I had, that was my job.
What's been the most dramatic and consequential change in the movie business since you've been in it, you know, over the last 10, 15 years?
I think it's a combination of maybe three factors. One is that studios are now all small divisions of multinational corporations which are used to repeatable products. They're used to increasing volume by marketing, not increasing volume by making a better product necessarily. I don't not mean to be critical here. I'm just saying once a recipe is found, everything is a question of keeping it the same and broadening the marketing basis. A generation of moviegoers who have come to maturity in a different way than we all did. In the 70s and even early 80s, college kids on weekends went to see foreign movies. Nobody goes to see foreign movies now.
Why is that?
They're not interested. They're just not interested.
Because they're distracted by other things, or foreign movies are not as good, or?
Foreign movies are told in a way that's contrary to the sort of cultural influence that they've grown up on. These are multitasking, mosaic-oriented kids who grew up with earphones on, doing homework, watching television without the sound.
So they had a picture in front of them.
You had a picture going with no sound, homework questions, and loud rock music in your ears. Yeah. So I watch my kids do this, and I said, you know, now you take those kids and you put them in a story that says, once upon a time, there was a castle, and then, you know, it's hard. They want to get to the gun quickly. They want to get to the undressing quickly. They want to get to the most sensate part of it. I don't want to say sensationalistic. that sounds like I'm knocking it. I don't mean to knock it. It's a whole different way of looking at storytelling.
Well, do you feel old-fashioned?
Yeah, I feel old-fashioned. I do. I mean, it's a little like liking Tabasco sauce so much that you can't eat something without Tabasco sauce. And these are kids that want Tabasco sauce on their food. And what that does, it does something. It gives you a sensation, also dulls your taste buds, so that when you don't have Tabasco sauce, there's not a lot to taste. And every once in a while, there's an exception to that rule. You know, you can make a breakthrough picture that still has a kind of classical storytelling elements to it. But this is a tough generation to capture. This is tough to get their attention. They have very short attention span. They're used to, when I say multitasking, it's a computer world. I mean, the computers can do 5 programs at once, and these kids can keep up with it.
So they like things like...
Let's get to the point. Well, okay, where's the gun?
Yeah, right.
All right, get to the sex scene.
So
okay,
the Matrix, which is a well-made action-adventure film,
very well
would be directly... They'd love that.
Absolutely. I loved it.
Are you out there always trolling for something that you will say, this is, notwithstanding, I have everything going for me, this is a main chance?
Sure. I mean, I would love to find...
I don't mean something will drop in your lap, but that you're out there trolling for it.
Well, I try to read as much as possible. I talk to agents. I talk to publishers. I try to keep my ear to the ground. I have people that work with me. Some work with me, some work for me, that are out there, you know, all the time, reading publishing reports, talking to book people, talking to new writers, saying, what do you want to do? Let's come up with something. I want to do something about Washington, desperately. I always have. I want to do something about the media again, and maybe the media in Washington, you know. I also want desperately to do something about Hollywood. And I've been taking notes on that for 20 years. I don't think anybody really has made a piece that's like what All About Eve was to the theater about Hollywood. The movie business has become a business that the entire population of the world is interested in. And they're not just interested in the movies. They're interested in the grosses. They're interested in the producers. They're interested in the heads of the studios. They're interested in the way movies are sold. They're interested in everything. And nobody's really made a terrific movie about it. So, yeah, I'm always fooling around on that. But the thing that moves me and excites me, ultimately, is something that makes me cry or laugh in terms of relationships. That's really all I've done. I've worked in different forms. I've tried to do it in thrillers. I've tried to do it in comedies. I've tried to do it in, you know, love stories. I've tried to do it in these sort of big epic style movies. But ultimately, the thing is, I don't want it to be over when the picture's over. I think a lot of the goal today is an opening weekend. It's very important that you do an opening weekend, and you're not so worried after that. It's not always built to be looked at 10 years from now. It's built to have a fantastic 3-day weekend. And if the grosses are big enough on that 3-day weekend, you can coast downhill and you're on to the next one. It's the economics of the business have changed so radically that that's what's happened. I love the idea that you walk out of the theater and you can't get it out of your head. And, you know, a week later you're thinking about it, or, you know, it's hard to do those pictures, but people still are making them. Something like The English Patient, for me, was a picture like that.
Me too.
And Anthony Minghella, that very talented guy, is now my partner.
Right.
So we're...
Yeah, are you making...
Cold Mountain.
Cold Mountain.
We're starting Cold Mountain with Jude Law, Nicole Kidman, and Renee Zellweger.
Directed by Anthony Minghella.
Directed by Anthony Minghella.
Right. Sydney Pollack, one of the best. Thank you for joining us. See you next time.